Welcoming you to the PIDE webinar. It's our 8th, I think, or 9th webinar on special railway system because it's an important system. We are going to invest 6 billion rupees or 7 billion rupees in the ML-1. We have a huge reinvestment program in the railway system. We have a great asset in the railway system, so it's important for us to pay attention to it. So PID is taking that up as a major project. And inshallah, after these webinars, we will produce a book on this subject as well. But let me just say that this is a PID effort alone. Anwar Zafar Durrani of Re-Energy has been helping us on this. He's taken the lead on this. And for us, that's very important. Amir has done a great job putting together 8 webinars and bringing in a diverse set of speakers all the way from Australia to Canada to China. We've got a large number of speakers who talked about this, and I've personally understood a lot about the railways. So with my personal thanks and PID's thanks to Amir, let me invite Amir again to try and lead this webinar. Amir, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that kind introduction, and my apologies for, I had back-to-back meetings, but I'm so happy to see the Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission here, and I'm also happy to see, I think, Mr. Sipra, who's going to be talking about the ML-1 project. But if Nabil is around, Nabil, we thought it would be good if we could show the Deputy Chairman a recording, our 5-6 minute recording that we had done for railways, so as to give context, this being the last webinar. So I think let's listen to that, and then I'll take the floor.
Pakistan inherited a relatively rich railway system at the time of our independence. Our railway system was also featured on the BBC's famous railway journeys in the world. But like everything else, we let it deteriorate. There are many facets to the deterioration of railways, but now we have a deficit system that has been running in deficit over the years, where passengers are declining, where revenues are declining, where railway pensions are increasing, where the salary bill is increasing, assets are depreciating rapidly. But I might also add, so has our research system. Our research system has paid no attention to railways, just as the research system has paid no attention to the other deficits in the economy. We at the PID, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, which is the leading think tank of Pakistan, which has been also in decline for the last many decades. PID has recently partnered with Re-Energy to develop a large series of webinars on the railway system and a large research agenda on the railway system. Doesn't mean this will end here. We will move forward and develop more work on the railways.
Many of you know the mess that we've made. Railways is now bleeding in every direction. I don't think there is any direction, experts will tell us, I know nothing about it, but I don't think there's any direction in which the railways is not bleeding. How did this come to pass? Intellectuals, think tanks are amiss. We have written nothing on railways. We know nothing about railways. Somewhere in the 70s, 80s, we began a romance with the car. So my family switched from the railway to the car. And then along came Mr. Sharif, and we developed a romance with the roads.
So you don't have enough money, at least in my sums, to be able to pay for that unless the government provides it. Freight demand, it's increasing and it's promising. It could cover its operating costs and rolling stock provision, contribute to infrastructure. But my experience in other countries has shown that state railways such as PR struggle to compete in competitive freight markets. So if the private sector is going to be allowed or is going to come into the freight sector, into the freight business, then PR is going to have to reorganize itself big time if it's not to be slaughtered.
What can be a good policy decision is, okay, from today, railways will run as a commercial entity, it will run as a business enterprise, no more favors to anybody, no more sort of facilitating the poor. We've never facilitated the poor.
Railway sector reform, and I want to say this very loudly, when people say you need to have the right skills to make Pakistan railway sector work. Well, to be very honest, 80% of that reform does not require you to have ever operated a railway. It requires simple maths and simple understanding of how the business and the political economy of a business works.
There are some ambitious statements or goals in reset vision exercises is 2025, 2030, 5-year plan and National Corridor Improvement Program as well, but without any strategic discussion.
It is the policy formulation is the prerogative of the political leadership, but it should be a one-liner. Okay, no welfare activities in the railways. Railways should run as a commercial organization. This
रेलवे ने ड्राईपोर्ट बना दिया, 60 करोड़ रुपया लगा दिया, तो रेलवे के पास लोकोमोटिव होने चाहिए, रेलवे के पास वैगनें होनी चाहिए, ताकि ये रेलवे का पहिया चले.
I think the lesson from that is access is just about finding a system by which an operator can run trains over the track of another person. It does not have to be open access. It can be arranged and contracted. It does not need all the paraphernalia that is included in Europe. And, many of the arrangements that are made commercially are quite simple. So there's a whole spectrum of arrangements there that are used around the world. But my preference for Pakistan would to take when in doubt, take the simple approach.
Unfortunately, the Pakistan Railway and Ministry of Railway could not be persuaded to activate the concession contracts they had signed. I'll let Jawed talk about what with that. I don't know why that happened.
I mean, private sector was and is willing to invest more than $1 billion. John has said it very correctly. More than $1 billion is there, even today, is there by the private sector to invest in the railway sector. Today, when nobody is ready to invest a single rupee in Pakistan Railways, private sector is still willing to invest millions of dollars in the railways project through this track access policy. Like 76 is the number of freight train size which can be run and should be run on the corridors of Pakistan Railways. Currently, hardly 90 trains are being run. In the track access project, the private operators were given right to run hardly 4 trains. You can see there is still plenty of room available even if the private sector plays its role and runs its freight trains on the corridors from south to north of Pakistan.
What we can learn from how China did things and how we can apply them in Pakistan.
To go beyond a 5-year plan, the first one, so I've been told, and I think that's right. So the MLTTP, the long-term development plan, had a number of features, but one of them was separate tracks for passenger. And this led to the high-speed trains.
The GDP growth is related to the railway freight.
What we care more about is also how does the system really generate to the employment, the GDPs, and also incomes and social equities, and the new firm formations.
There is no magic to railway financing. I say this because people often think that a railway's problems can be fixed with some fancy financial instrument that pulls money out of the air and doesn't have to be paid back.
Railways are very capital intensive, as most people know.
Customer underpins everything. The customer ultimately brings the value to the railway. They pay the tariffs and they pay the way.
We want to develop a customer-centric organization. So this is a chart of showing moments of truth.
To look at the 10 top loss-making state-owned enterprises. and railways is one of them.
Freight-wise, 60% of the freight revenue actually comes from just the 3.5 million tons of cargo for the Sahiwal power plant.
The idea of these webinars was to collectively seek opinion of all those involved in Pakistan's railway sector, whether directly, indirectly. It was to basically bring a view of the entire world and the region using global experiences as to how to take Pakistan's railway sector forward. But unfortunately, at least from my standpoint, whether we talked of the history, whether we talked of the institutions, whether we talked about financing, whether we talked about the vision, we always talked about Pakistan Railways. We never ever talked about Pakistan's railway sector. And I think that's where the crux of the problem lies. Are we trying to resuscitate a public sector enterprise, or are we actually trying to resuscitate Pakistan's railway sector? Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. May I just tell the audience that we have again two of our speakers here, the Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission, as well as Sipra Saab. Chairman Saab, is it possible that we can listen to Sipra, or do you still have to leave early and thereby we allow you to take the floor first?
Sorry, are you addressing me? I'm Jehanzeb here.
Gigi, I was just being polite.
Thank you very much. I actually do have to leave early. There is another commitment.
So why don't we just give the floor over to you, and then we'll take Sipra after this. Thank you so much, sir.
It's very kind of you. Thank you, and thank you everybody and Vice Chancellor for organizing this. I think this is very timely. There are so many experts here that I would not want to re-emphasize the importance of logistics, the entire logistic networks, and railway is a backbone in that. All of us know it, the specialists know it, the layman also knows it. We all know the issues that Pakistan Railways has been facing, and the historic neglect, both in terms of infrastructure development, and the managerial side, the customer services, and the service delivery. All of that has suffered, and it's again, I think it's useful to have diagnostics, but it's pointless to just discuss it on and on. So what next? I think there are two things happening side by side, which are both very exciting and promising as well, provided we are able to harness them. The first is the subject of this webinar, the ML-1. And this is a very large project, as we all know, and negotiated with China, willing to support this project. We have a framework agreement. A lot of work has been done, the feasibility work, the preparation, everything is done. The projects are approved. I think approved the project, and now we are in the next steps with the government of China, trying to negotiate the loan agreement, as well as then to get on to the next steps of bidding and work, and then the implementation. The project has been approved at a certain cost, and there are some contingencies that need to be built in, but we'll see when that bidding takes place. We'll look at the best bid, and also then be able to arrive at the market-based cost of the project. The Chinese government agreed with us in the framework agreement that this is a strategic nature project, and there would be favorable terms of the loan. And therefore, we are somewhat keen on getting a better rate of loan. We're close to it. The negotiations are at a good stage, and we're now looking forward to the closure. The recent Joint Coordination Committee of CPAC was supposed to deliberate the next steps. It has been delayed, and we're trying to get it back as early as possible. And that would take us to the next steps of this huge project, and a very, very important project, which actually looks at the mainline one, does the infrastructure development, the signaling system makes it high speed, can carry more load, would be fenced, and would provide a new level of services and service delivery. Now, the other important thing that is happening, this is not really connected with ML-1, is the railway strategic investment framework and work that has been done by Pakistan Railway in collaboration with the support of Asian Development Bank. And it's a very comprehensive work and comprehensive set of things to be done, which Railways has been mistakenly worked out with some of the best experts that were available. And this is about not only the infrastructure side or building up the locomotives and the wagons and passenger coaches, etc. But this is all about the business side of Pakistan, the managerial side, how to bring in the private sector. I heard a comment which was very important. I think it underpins this important discussion is about the railway sector and not only about Pakistan Railways. I think that's and there also points to another issue that the Ministry of Railways should be looking after the sector, not exclusively Pakistan Railways. And we expect that not only Pakistan Railways have a great role to play, but there might be other service providers. Urban rail is important, metros are important. We have large urban centers, light trains are important, and there's so much more that has to happen. So, and then the connectivity with the region, etc. So this work that has been done prepares Pakistan Railway to move ahead on that work. And from that work, they have also developed a strategic implementation plan, which has been approved by the cabinet some months back. And the Railways is in the process of acquiring some people, some market-based people for now implementing this strategic implementation program, which has a broad agreement everywhere. The cabinet, it was presented to the Planning Commission and has gone through various iterations. Now, if you look at these two and juxtapose them, the ML-1 would help us develop the mainline one and bring it at par with other contemporary railway systems. And the strategic investment plan would help us bring about the vast-scale managerial reforms that are required, not only in the management of Pakistan Railway, but also in the railway sector. Still look at the policy side of it and to see how more and more private sector. We have a huge number of examples. It's a complex sector. I've had some exposure to the reforms of British rails, and some of them have worked very well. But some have lessons to learn from. And there has been a lot of research and literature into some of those things which led to some degree of fragmentation as well. And so what are the lessons learned and how can we apply them to our context? I think the larger question must remain a focus of research and discussion is that this is a public good. And if it is a public good and it has to be provided by the government or the public sector, then how does this public good translate into also benefits for the ordinary people? Still kind of think about railways as the transportation for the low-income group and the vulnerable. Another point was made in these opening video regarding how the government can, now with its huge database of those who are in need of support, can give them support for such purposes such as transportation, electricity, food, etc., and not burden the organizations with those subsidies, because then it distorts the business case and the business model. But really, we continue to have challenge of being the provider of public transportation to the more the underprivileged or the less privileged sections of society, at least in our part of the world. I think that aspect of public good must also be kept in mind. Freight is key to transportation business, and with this should mention and I use the term logistics in the first instance and not railways alone, because it has to be an integrated system of logistics, and it has to be integrated into the region as well. Logistics is, with more and more of the trade and business being dependent upon marginal profits, logistics has a huge role to play. The cost of logistics is really a very, very big factor now in accessing markets and how goods are transported. So the connectivity, and we've been talking about connectivity with Afghanistan, onwards with Central Asia, and at some point connectivity with South Asia as well, would be imperative to realize the full potential of the freight side of this. But for the moment, as we know, Pakistan Railways is getting some benefit from the coal transportation, but that's one way. Most of the transportation is from the south to the north, and with the realization of some of the potential that we have in the north, and hopefully in future, if the Afghanistan situation settles down and the prospects of raw material and minerals coming from that side of the border, or even from our erstwhile FATAs and serving the industries that are elsewhere in the country, it should be a two-way transportation. So those are the key areas. We in the Planning Commission are very committed to getting the ML-1 done. It's taken quite some time. It was a difficult project. There was a lot of diligence required, diligence on the technical side that we are going in for the right kind of solutions, and diligence on the costing side. There are also issues of whether or not we can, at this point, have electrical traction on the locomotives, or they'll continue to be on diesel. Some very ticklish issues, and we are mindful of the benefits and the challenges. But I'm quite confident that the project, as it is approved now, is the best that could have been done with the amount of work that has gone in, the resources. And I think the real challenge now is to get going with it. I welcome this research-oriented approach to the works, because a lot of issues require clarity of thought and evidence so that we can build up our case. One final point is about having the HR. Railways has been a subject mostly or entirely in the public sector, and we have not been able to develop a reservoir of trained personnel who could run contemporary railways, and that is a challenge. So we've quite recently approved projects, one for NED University Karachi, another one for the New Tech University, where they'll be training people specific to railways, and railway as part of transportation engineering. And this was not there previously. So we're also looking at the HR side of it, without which it would not be possible to run this whole affair, even if the infrastructure was to develop. Finally, I think the Chinese would be a great support in this, not only because they have shown some very rapid strides in railways. They are making huge progress. They're one of the fastest growing railway network in the world, and their track record on security, safety, everything is excellent. The technology is continuously improving, and we should benefit as much as we can from this tremendous opportunity. Thank you very much.
Jehanzeb, thank you so much for your time and your very incisive comments Since you have to leave, Sipra Sahab, I'll turn this around a bit. There are a few questions, and I'd invite the audience to please raise their hands in the next few minutes. But there are some questions, Jehanzeb Sahab, which have been pending over the last 8 webinars, and I quickly wanted to pose them to you, and maybe if you can address them for us, that'd be very useful. As you know that we record all this, and we're trying to put together a modern book from Pakistan Railways. I come from not only a railway family, but have been working on Pakistan Railways with no, let's say, success since the last at least 28 years. So I think that the questions that I'm going to pose are actually coming from the webinars. They're not my personal opinion. Let me qualify that. So the first is, I think you're the first person.
Yeah, please carry on.
Okay, thank you. So you're the first person, actually, whether you like it or not, since November last year, who has actually started the discussion by saying the sector. And before you said the railway sector, you actually mentioned the logistics sector, which obviously largely is transport and logistics. So obviously you have a hat, which we found lacking in all our discussions. And the reason the first question, therefore, comes from one of our earlier discussions, which basically said that where is there a plan which puts the railway sector of Pakistan, let it be even at the federal level, in the context of the entire transportation and logistics system of Pakistan. So is there such a plan of which then we can say certain investments are being carved out? Because as you said, you have a railway strategic investment framework, but that framework should come out of a chunk which is already decided that this is how we're going to focus. And you know why we're asking this question is primarily, if you look since 1958, there is, since the Howard Advisory Group, an upward trend on the road investments, and that's really one of the banes of why we are where we are. So first question is on that, the larger context. My second question, and please allow me to ask all three because you have limited time. The second question is on the HR, is it really the job of the government to develop the sector? Or, as we found in the case of Pakistani aviation sector, that the moment you allowed other airlines to operate, the number in 10 years, in a decade, grew to 6 times the number of professionals that were automatically available. So the people who came into the sectors developed that professionalism themselves, rather than going to universities and expecting to go directly into a government job with Pakistan Railways. So that's number 2. Number 3, on the Chinese, we had a specific webinar, and thanks to a lot of people from different parts of the world, we learned a lot about the progress of China. And one of the things we learned from there is that really you put the railway sector first. Not only did you put the railway sector first, you actually put rail freight ahead of road freight. Now, we know that since the 70s and the deregulation of the road freight transport, this is a very, or we think we have been harping on it, that it's very efficient. Although, if you realistically look at the cost that you incur through the National Highway Authority, I think it is debatable whether by allowing unbridled expansion of the road freight and the government paying for basically the burden of these private transporters, that we brought any efficiency into our sectors. So I think these are 3 questions, and I think they're pretty much apt because you do look at, from where you sit, at the macro planning picture of Pakistan. So quickly, if you can just please address these. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. These are important questions. The first one, other than the strategic investment plan, as I said, there is a national freight and logistics policy and a plan within that also. So it's a very comprehensive document. It looks at the entire freight sector, and the railways is definitely situated within that. And we are now implementing that plan. The Communication Ministry is the lead ministry for that, but also they are There are several other ministries because it would involve the maritime, it would involve aviation, it will involve railways, and so on and so forth. So it's a quite a wide-ranging plan, and it has the provincial governments also they are engaged in this. So that's the other important point. The issue of HR development. So we all know if we liberate the environment and if we allow the private sector to step in, a lot of these issues, supply side issues, will be resolved. And you mentioned the aviation sector, we know the telecom sector, we are short of telecom engineers as well. The banking sector is another example. What we've learned also is that transportation engineering and railway, the technical side, the technician level workers, there is a requirement to upgrade them. So these people are not being trained for jobs in Pakistan Railway. We're looking at Pakistan should have a number of urban metros, urban rails, and they would need qualified and trained manpower. So it's not meant for the public sector at all. Even if the private sector would step in, it would need these kind of technically qualified people. I'm sure. Then third point regarding the sorry, if you could just remind me of the third point.
I was the growth in the Chinese railway
yes.
sector, and really on the freight, and why we are just allowing unbridled expansion on the road freight.
So this is something that we've all learned, and I think there were people who would have known this even earlier, but we all know that unbridled transportation, freight transportation on the roads, and the expansion, mindless expansion of the road network is most horrendous because the freight on the roads and without axle load management has caused a lot of damage to the infrastructure. The investments have been wasted, and there's more and more yearning to have the road network expanded and strengthened. Now, the question before us is, should this be regulated, or should this be allowed, the private sector or the freight transporters should be allowed to use whichever network is more effective and efficient? Both these counts, the railways has been found wanting for a number of years. Therefore, you'd recall rail freight was mostly for wheat transportation purposes, and then oil, and subsequently some other commodities. Now, a lot of that has changed. We are cognizant of this, and we feel that as the railway becomes more and more efficient, the freight side could also kind of subsidize the passenger transport side, because there are differentials available in the freight which will lead to more profits. Some work has been done on this. I think this is another area for research, but we would like to be guided on whether or not the government should do this as a matter of policy, or it should be a matter of economy and efficiency, which would work better, and how government, if it was to use various policy tools, what tools could it possibly employ to help the to make a transition more towards rail based freight. There's one point that I'd like to mention, that after a lot of effort, we were able to start the implementation of the axle load management regime in the country. And interestingly, the transporters were quite willing to do this. The resistance used to come from them. They were the ones who stalled it for many number of years. But more recently, they were quite amenable to this new regime. And now the reluctance, and huge reluctance, came from the industry, because they thought their freight costs will go higher, and the impact on public in form of more inflationary pressures would be also visible. The government had to hold back on this, even though this is a legal requirement. So it's a bit of a complex equation, and how the public sector should use its policy tools to influence. I think I'll leave it to the experts to guide us on that. Thank you.
So thank you very much. So, I'm forced not letting people speak. I just gathered one last question for you, which could be 1.5. And this one is let me first say, it's about the time frame of ML-1, the first one, as to what would realistically be there. And the second one, and we've had a long discussion on ML-1, and I think the Mr. Sun actually did not want to be in this webinar because he kind of knew the questions that we're going to put. But let me ask you this. I mean, all experts agree that if the ML-1 is so profitable, why not raise money on the stock exchange for this? I mean, why has that not even been an option? In fact, it should be now, given all this debate, it should be an option. It would automatically bring about the financial and fiscal efficiencies that the government seeks. So if you could kindly just, as going away remarks, sort of illuminate us on that. Thank you so much.
So I got the first part, which is time frame. So that is about 7 years. It is ambitious, but the project implementation period is 7 years. And on the second point, if you could repeat that.
Yeah, so Jehanzeb, everyone has convinced us that ML-1 is profitable, right? They say that this is a profitable venture, it will pay for itself, it's the panacea for all ills. And I, for one, say that even if it is not profitable and the government's going to grant it some kind of a subsidy or have an equity share or whatever, extend debt to it, why not raise money on the public stock exchange? Why not create an ML-1 company that would break the shackles away from PR? And that ML-1 company then goes on the stock exchange and sells shares. And essentially, you can raise a major lot of capital there. Why is that not being done? Because both for the fiscal side, which you manage, and from the financial efficiency side, this is the best thing to do.
So the profitability has been put to great detail of scrutiny. There are questions around the profitability, the assumptions, some of those assumptions can be debated. And of course, we also have so much of infrastructure development already going on, the CPEC route, the economic corridor, what kind of transportation and freight transportation will be diverted towards that. All of that is also serious questions. So I tend to lean towards your argument on saying that even if it was not profitable, it's an infrastructure development project, and governments do infrastructure development as a public good. So to that extent, we don't have an issue. To go and raise capital for this from the markets is a interesting proposition. The reason for us going to the Chinese and asking for this loan is that the entire package comes as a full technical support, the implementation with the help of the Chinese government. It is under a G2G framework. So if you were to raise capital and then try to do this ourselves, we have serious management constraints on the side of the railway ministries and the Pakistan Railways. So, but the next steps should be in line with what you are suggesting. If we were not going to do this with a G2G framework, the implementation would be very hard. And then railway has a very ossified culture. It's a tough organization to work with now. It has there's very huge reluctance to bring in private sector to work with technical experts, third parties. So unless we break this almost a vicious cycle by bringing in a huge partner, China Railway, for instance, has a tremendous track record of doing these kind of things. We were also talking to them about doing the O&M for some years for us to bring about the shift. And it's personally, I'm not quite keen on just looking at this as a contractual delivery project where you terminate on the day when the project is done, but also a kind of a management contract on several aspects which should continue till we are fully capable of taking over either in the private sector or in the public sector. And China is keen to do this in PPP mode. Some of the segment on the southern end, you're already doing it on the PPP mode. The KPT Pipri segment where there's already a lot of freight is now a project that has been presented to the PPP authority, and it is at a fairly advanced stage. And that was taken, it was part of ML-1 at the beginning, but has been carved out. So to make best use of these other modes of financing for the project. Let's see how we get along with it. And we're also doing this in phases. In the first phase, some segments which are high priority will be done. And maybe when we come to the second phase, we'll have the opportunity to look at these options that you've mentioned.
Thank you very much, Sir Jehanzeb sir. And once again, a lot of thanks. But as you leave, let me plant a few seeds. And I'm again want to thank you because the two ideas which you seem so coherently able to express. The first, the sectoral view rather than just a PR view. And the second one, that you are open, you actually understand how this public capital raising could happen. So that the thing that we have been discussing in the previous 8 webinars, and you will hopefully see some of that reflected in at least the proceedings that we put out, and then ultimately the book next February, is the whole idea around, you see, look at it this way, the National Highway Board and the National Highway Authority, I mean, you're senior enough, like myself, I don't know if you're younger or older, but definitely I was around when NHB was formed, when NH-8 became, and so, the government essentially took an organization, took some roads, and by the way, in those days, because of the concurrent list, but that doesn't need to be done in railways. You can create ML-1 as a separate company. There is no need for Pakistan Railway to be even involved in its creation. And I think one of the things that is emerging from our recommendations is if you keep PR out of ML-1, it may happen faster. And that is up for debate, but we shall definitely inform you whatever comes out of that. But again, thank you so much. Please stick around. I'm going to hand the floor over to Sipra Saab for his presentation. But, it was really a joy having you here. I wish we had invited you earlier. We tried, but anyhow, railways only came last time. But again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'll be looking forward to benefit from the recommendations that you will finalize. I can assure you we'll be open. We look for good advice. We don't have any monopoly. We are very limited by our own capacity. So all of this is hugely helpful to us in our work, and I look forward to receiving your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Sipra Saab, over to you. I think you are allowed to share screen. And ladies and gentlemen, please keep your questions, the remaining ones, to the end and raise your hand. Please allow Sipra Saab to complete. Sipra Saab, could you introduce yourself? I know that you work in the ML-1 Secretariat, but just introduce yourself and give us a quick overview of what you're going to say to keep an interest alive for the audience. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Tariq Anwar Sipra. I'm working as a traffic specialist here in the team. This team is practically headed by our team leader, Mr. Bisharat Wahid, who is heading this ML-1 project on the behalf of Pakistan Railways. And we have sector specialists like rolling stock specialists and infrastructure specialists and other monitoring specialists here with us to work on this project. This project is basically, it's a landmark project, as everybody knows, and we have been working on this project for the last 5 or 6 years, right? From its basic point to the day where we have been entered into the final negotiation phase with the Chinese for its loan terms. So it's a landmark project, and as far as the progress on this project is concerned, we are dealing it with the rapid pace so that we can complete within the time frame which we are envisioning for this, like from 7 to 8 years, as Mr. Jehanzeb has told. So as far as our team is concerned, we have done our part. As far as the preliminary design is concerned, it's complete. Standard documents are also complete. And we are waiting for the Chinese approval for the first phase of the loan, and then it will be all set up for this. Screen share. Yes, we can have a presentation on this.
That's great. Thank you. I hope everyone can see this. Thank you.
Yeah, this is basically the first. I'll simply go through the slide, and I think the interactive section with the question answer would be more productive, because a lot of questions will be in the audience mind. And right from the presentation we had from the Jehanzeb Saab, there are a lot of other questions arising in the audience mind as well. So this is basically the roadmap. We can safely see that the ML-1 in the black in color runs from the Karachi up to Peshawar, and we have other corridors as ML-2 and ML-3 as well. So basically the project profile of ML-1, practically it will be completing in 8.5 years, and we have divided as an implementation scheme to 3 packages. So I will go into details of these 3 packages as well. Our total cost will be 6.806 billion, and it will be engineering, procurement, and construction contract mode. And ACNEC approved this project on the 5th of August last year. These are some important milestones. The fifth JCC meeting in 2015, this was taken as a priority project, and it is a result of a framework agreement between China and Pakistan, and the feasibility study with the help of Pakistani government support. It was completed in 2016. In the second framework agreement, which was signed in Beijing in 2017, Pakistan Railways and China declared this project as a strategic, and as a result of that, preliminary design was carried out, and it was also completed in 2020. According to the project scope, these are some major highlights of the scope. And according to the scope, we are laying new track with improved subgrade, and which will be able to run the trains, the passenger trains at 160 km/h and the passenger train at 120 km/h. And it will involve the rehabilitation and construction of all bridges and provision of modern signaling and telecom systems. And one of the most important aspect of this project is it's a conversion of level crossings, because these are the most vulnerable points, and we have changed all our level crossings to underpasses and flyovers. And like the concept we have in the motorways, the track will be fenced from both sides. In city areas, it will be concrete wall, and in open tracks, it will be fencing alongside the track. So we will be also developing a dry port near Hamilia for as a transshipment hub for the traffic from China. And as a softer part, we are upgrading our Walton Training Academy. It's a huge project as well, and we coupled it with the first phase of the project. The prime objectives of this project, to summarize it, we will be having a very huge line capacity. The country, which is like 35 to 40, will be increased to 135 trains. And the freight volumes, which is currently at 8 to 9 million, will be to 35 million per annum at the end of this project. And increase in passenger trains from 20 to 40. And the freight share, this is basically the key point and the takeaway from all this debate, that we are going to focus on the freight in a very big way through the participation of private parties as well, and we'll be targeting to increase our share, which is currently at 4% to 20%, and it is in line with the PRSPs, the Pakistan Railway Strategic Plan as well. So this is just a snapshot of time reduction from Karachi to Lahore, like just 10 hours then, Lahore Multan 3, and similarly in Islamabad Lahore section, we will be beating motorways and reaching in just 2 hours 30 minutes. So there is a lot of job created as a result of this project in direct and indirect ways as well. This is the construction schedule, and we will be completing package 1 from April 22 to March 27. And just I highlight what kind of a plan we have for the package 1. Right after the 18 months of package 1, then starting simultaneously package 2 from 23 onwards, and package 3 will be starting after the 12 months of package 2. So after a time frame, all the packages will be in progress and the whole project will be completed in 8.5 years. This is the package 1. It's between Nawabshah Rodi, Multan, Lahore, Lahore Lala Musa, Kalwal, Pandora, basically the Gujar section, and the Walton Academy. The duration is 5 years and the cost will be 2.7 billion. Similarly, the package 2 will be Kimari, Hyderabad, and the Hyderabad Multan, excluding the work which is already done on the Nawabshah Road section. And the duration will be it's the largest package, and the duration will be 7 years, and it will be completed with a cost of 2.675 billion. And the package 3 will be Lala Musa, Rawalpindi, Peshawar, and establish at Raipur, and it will be completed in 4 years. So these are some design standards which we are using. I was not going into the detail of these, just paucity of time. We will be using different kind of standards. Somewhere where the Chinese standards suit us, we'll be using that. Especially for the rails, we'll be using the European standards like EN 13647, which is the European rail standard, because in China we are also using, they're also using the similar rail standards as in Europe. And for the track fastenings, we are using the European standard EN 13481 and 2. Similarly, the signaling system will be also from the equivalent to the Chinese standard, and the safety level will be the highest which is available in the world right now. And we are also using the multiple European and international standard of the Electrotechnical Commission. Telecommunication standard will be the same for the international levels, and the bridges will be, the codes will be ARIMA, PR bridge code in the Chinese. It's a mix of all 3 standards for that purposes. So local manufacturing, we as a transfer technology aspect, we will be using local manufacturing of phosphor fastening in Pakistan, pre-stretched concrete as well, and the long ties for the turnouts in Pakistan will be manufactured as a result of this technology transfer. And we also using developing the cards of the different telecom system, because the problem of heating and burning of cards, we will be developing those cards in Pakistan. There is a complete environmental impacts assessment associated with this, and we have entrusted that work to the NESPA, which has completed that assignment as well. So basically, these were some technical aspects which I have shared with the audience. And now I come to the governance challenge of ML-1, as earlier said in the previous discussion, as narrated by Vardi DCPC sir, that basically it's a governance challenge. We have to come up with the solution that how we can run this ML-1 and how we can prepare this ML-1, whether it's within the PR system or whether it's a complete and independent entity. So we have come up with the solution in which we are going to build human resource capacity to handle this challenge and to handle this maintenance, operation, and marketing challenges, because at present, Pakistan Railway, with its current human resource and current strategy, is not being able to come up with a solution to get the real benefit of this huge investment in shape of ML-1. So we have to upgrade our accounting system, and we have to ring fence our income and expenditures from the rest of the railways. We have to make extraordinary coordination between different tiers of TPR and the private sector to get maximum benefit from the proposed structures. And we have to also develop a business development unit based on the market analysis and business generation. For this purpose, we have already started our work, and we have hired the services of consultants as well to come up with a business model so that we can create those structures well before the time, so that when the operation on the ML-1 started, we have the complete solution to handle that pressure. So this is basically a proposed kind of a structure in which the territorial plus functional model have been displayed on your screen. Minister of Railways will having the Pakistan Railway Holding Company under it, and under that company we will have ML-1 authority working independently to operate as a company which will be holding the infrastructure and maintaining all those infrastructure, and the rest of the railways infrastructure will be developed with the present PR structure. These are the infrastructure which are going to be owned by the government and have to be maintained by the government. As far as the transport and the passenger and the freight companies are concerned, both private and the public sector companies. Public sector companies, I mean the companies which are being run by the Pakistan Railways, and the private passenger company and the private freight companies which are going to be developed as a result of private sector intervention will be given the train operating licenses and the train operating concessions like on the UK model. And the train operating companies will perform under the train regulatory authority. And these companies will be having a level playing field, and whichever the best mode of business available to the ML authority will be given to the company, whether it's a public company or whether it's a private company. So as far as the training and the software part is concerned, we are also developing PR Academy in a very big way. We are going to introduce a new regime of training. It's like for the pre-service, in-service and refreshers trainings. We are going to increase our skill training courses and the efficacy of those courses and bringing them in line with the modern needs of the ML-1, and the safety training courses and the personnel training, because personnel management, it's going to be a big question mark, because we have an inherent inertia and the reluctance toward the change in this largest public sector organization. So we have to, with the passage of time, develop those areas in which we can train our personnel according to the modern needs of the passengers or freight business. So basically, if you come to the most important part of this presentation is the why we are doing this ML-1, because basically we can, as a result of this presentation, we can find that it is basically demand driven. There's a huge demand for the freight and the passenger business available in the market, and we have a business case for Pakistan Railways that the ML-1 is the lifeline for the freight transportation of this country, because you can see that freight business, this is the historical trend. In 2014-15, we had a historic jump of the freight. We were just exporting one export train, and then we were able to export 5 or 6 freight trains at that time with the different interventions, like with the invention of locomotives and better strategies. Then we have an increase of freight from 3 to 8.38 million by the year 2018 to 19. So average increase per year in the freight in 4 years, we have witnessed 25% increase in the freight. So keeping this historical freight increase trend in view, we see that there are a lot of opportunities available for the freight sector. So we have also entered into the 2 track access and agreements with the Mrs. Marine Group and the Fast Track. So after that, in operation, we will be having 7 trains of track access regime, and our freight trains will increase from 12 to 19. Currently, we are running the 12 freight trains, but after these agreements, the track access will be dealing with the 19 freight trains in the next 5 years. It will be increased in 58%. Being on the conservative side, I must say that it will be 5% increase per annum during the 9 years, total 55%. So I have projected here a study of the World Bank, and this is the KPT container traffic forecast. This is for the KPT only, and by the 2037-38, there will be 7.8 million TUs. TU stands for the 20 feet equivalent units containers. It's a 20 feet container, and it's a standard format for gauging the freight available at the ports. So with this freight availability, you see that by the 2023, we can have 24 train pairs, and the TUs per day could be 3405. And by the year 2037-38, we can have, if we have the 40% share of TUs for the upcountry, because most of the shares of the TUs are consumed in the vicinity of the Karachi industrial area. So for the 40% train container which are going to the up country, we can have 8,556 TEUs, and which will constitute 61 trains. So by considering that available traffic in the coming years, we can have 5% increase per year during construction, 20% increase per year for the 3 years after construction, and 10% increase per year 2030, 2040. And these are the very conservative estimates, and based on the projection which have been founded with the established studies of World Bank and the increasing trend of the container traffic at KPT and other areas. So similarly, the freight trains for 2040, we can have an earning of around by 2040-41, we can have an 2,846 million US dollar freight earning by exporting 44 trains through this arrangement. Similarly, we can have same trend for the passenger business as well. It's 2% increase per year. It's a fairly conservative as well, and 10% increase per year for next 3 years. By 28-30, we can have 10% increase, and with the 5% increase per year, 10 years. So this is the snapshot of the passenger volume. We will be having passenger earning of more than 3,000 million and exporting 69 trains. And the number of passengers which are currently, which will be not more than 50 million, will be 125 million by the year 2040. So these are some basic statistics. So the net present value of the, although it's a public sector project, and we never judge these projects as basically done for the public good, and even that we have it's a net present value of 7,115, and WACC at 3.3%. Financial internal rate is 8.03, and we can safely conclude that project is financially viable, although there will be some problems initially, but practically after the grace period, the project will be generating enough to pay back its loan. Here is the most important bit of this analysis is the economic side. It's a very, very strong economic side because it's mirroring the infrastructure requirement gap. Low risk and efficient supply chains will be having after this project, contributing towards energy sector through efficient coal transportation, because already we are contributing towards the Yusufallah coal, and 2 or 3 other projects which are in pipeline will be having the same use of the hopper wagons and the freight traffic supply chains from the Pakistan Railways, especially to the ML-1. So it's a great positive environment impact due to reduced carbon footprint, especially by reducing the one freight train replaces 70 freight trucks on the road. So it's a huge contribution towards the low carbon footprint as well. So apart from the safety, reliability, and time saving, we have the decongestion and the reduced crash on the roads, boosting tourist activities and similar activities like the private sector engagement and the employment opportunities in the allied sectors of the transportation. So these are some factors which have been factored in while doing the calculations for the time savings, increased employment rate, improved safety. These are very generic one in the analysis, and the people related with the transport economics can very well imagine that these are the factors which are going to be contributed towards the economic efficiency of this project. So these are the economic indicators, 14085 million USD, and the economic internal rate is a very healthy, it's like 14.95. So here's the concluding remarks. The expected loan finance, these are the timelines which we are envisaging, and we got a certain setback with the deferment of JCC because we are at the final stage of the final approval of the loan. Expected that by the end of September it will be completed now, and by that we will be able to float the tender process will started, and it will take just 2 months. Tender version will take 2 months, then loan agreement and financial close by the February to March, which may have an additional 1 or 2 months, and the tentative groundbreaking could be like April or May somewhere in 2022. So we are looking forward for the early financial loan negotiation and commitment of loan for the package 1 from the Chinese side, so that we can go for the actual phase of working on the ML-1. Thank you very much for your patient listening, and we as a team at the PIU with my team leader and other sector specialists are ready to respond any questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Rosab, thank you very much. May I just hand over to Sabah? If you could collect questions, and if you have any questions on your own, please go ahead.
Thank you, Tariq Saab. Yes, we had a question. Imran, you raise your hand. I think Imran is not here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh, we have Javed Mansoor and I think Hafiz Jamali Sabah.
Sir Javed, please unmute yourself, sir.
Javed Mansoor Saab, kindly introduce yourself.
जी मैं जावेद मंसूर बोल रहा हूँ। मैं को 14 साल मैंने एज एग्जीक्यूटिव सेक्रेटरी नेशनल ट्रेड एंड ट्रांसपोर्ट फैसिलिटेशन कमेटी के काम किया था और मेरी एक ऑब्जर्वेशन उस पीरियड में थी कि गवर्नमेंट के इदारों में और गवर्नमेंट में जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं उस पीरियड में ग्रेजुअली उनका लेवल ऑफ कॉम्पिटेंस और कमिटमेंट टू इम्प्लीमेंट सिवाय चंद एक लिमिटेड नंबर ऑफ अच्छे ऑफिसर्स के वो सब गिरता चला गया है। तो और इस वक्त मुझे और एक चेंज के लिए एब्सोल्यूट रिलक्टेंस थी कि लोग चेंज को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते थे। तो मेरे ख्याल में बिगेस्ट इशू जो इस वक्त आएगा वो ये है ह्यूमन रिसोर्स को डेवलप करना कि वो इस काबिल हो कि इस नए प्रोजेक्ट को ठीक तरीके से इम्प्लीमेंट कर सके और उसके बाद उसे चला सके। तो इसके मुताल्लिक जब तक बिल्कुल शुरू से पूरी तवज्जो ना दी जाए इस प्रोजेक्ट को सक्सेसफुली इम्प्लीमेंट करना काफी मुश्किल होगा।
May I respond to the question, please?
Hafiz Jamali Saab. Right, Saab, let us gather a couple of questions from the floor, then you can answer one by one. Would that be okay?
Okay, it's okay.
Hafiz Jamali Saab, kindly introduce yourself. Hafiz Jamali Saab. Okay, we have another question from Iftikhar. Iftikhar Saab, kindly introduce yourself.
Nabil, could you let Iftikhar and Hafiz unmute themselves, please?
Sir, they can, sir, both can. Sir, can you unmute yourself, sir?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Nabil, can you just unmute them yourself?
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, go ahead, sir.
मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो ML-1 है इसको ये स्टार्ट कहाँ से कर रहे हैं? व्हाट इज द एग्जैक्ट प्लेस जहाँ से स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं? हवेलियां से कर रहे हैं और हवेलियां तक जो गुड्स आएंगी वो क्या उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी किसकी होगी?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Iftikhar Saab. Hafiz Jamali, kindly introduce yourself and unmute the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Apologies, there was a technical hiccup. My name is Dr. Hafiz Jamali. I'm an anthropologist of infrastructure and also a civil servant. The question I have, after the presentation is that this is a standard case in most of the, estimation of both freight and passenger traffic, as well as, the profitability, the revenue streams concerning transportation mega projects, that the estimates that, you showed prepared by the World Bank or, whichever agency prepared those estimates, always tend to overplay the benefits, that is the passenger and freight traffic, and underplay the costs. So underestimate the costs. So the question is, have those estimates been subjected to any sensitivity analysis? And what in different scenarios, what is the overall what are the different scenarios for those projections of freight? Thank you.
Thank you, Hafiz Amali Saab. Over to Tariq Saab. Now we have 3 questions.
Thank you very much. First, the Javed Mansoor Saab's comments regarding the subjective. I must say that in all the public sector organizations, there is a trend to go for some kind of a reluctance and inertia towards change. We are very well aware of this fact, and we are diligently working on that. We have hired the services of different consultants. We have floated the transactional advisory services for that. We are working on a complete governance model for the ML-1. So in that governance model, we will be developing a business model for that. For that purpose, we are developing 11 different models for the ML-1. So how we will create business, how we will build our HR, how we will operate it, what would be the role of IT in that, what could be the interface with the rest of the Pakistan Railways, and how public-private partnership could be done over there. And above all, what would be the financial model of that, and what would be the governance model of that. We are well aware of those challenges, and we are already working on this. And by the time this project will kickstart, and it will be completed within 3 years, well before the completion of first package. And as far as the start of the Mr. Iftikhar Saab was asking about the start of the ML-1. So team leader can, our team leader with us, and I can give.
Regarding the question of 1733 kilometers, and the most challenging part is to upgrade our track under train operation. This is the uniqueness in this project. It is not a green three packages, and within these 3 packages, we have further divided into different tenders depending on the different section. For example, for the package 1, our worst part of the track is in Sakhar division. So we will do Nawabshah Rodi section, which is around 183 kilometer. And the second, then we will have gap between from Rohdi to Multan. There is a train operation. We keep it intact, and then we start construction simultaneously from Multan to Lahore. And the third will be from Lahore to Lala Musa. So this is the way we are doing for the after package 1 and package 2. Our Karachi Hyderabad segment will be complete, and package 3 will contain beyond Lala Musa to Peshawar. Actually, the question of Mr. Iftikhar Saab was regarding the goods freight coming from China at Havelian. So we are planning to construct in the third package, which is a final package, small smart dry port near Havelian. So we will planning to capture all the goods coming by road from China at Havelian, and then transshipment into train to carry up to the sea.
Yeah. Now Mr. Hafiz Jamali, he is my batchmate perform my PCS service. It's nice to see him after 22 years now. And I congratulate him because he is working on the infrastructure projects. So I'll catch him after this webinar as well. Mr. Jamali, your question is very pertinent because always there is a tendency that the think tanks in the World Bank and other institutes, they like to project the good aspects of the projects in a big way, and they are cost factors are not highlighted in that fashion. So basically we have used those projections for the purpose of freight only. These are just the indicators for us that that kind of freight will be available, and the rest of the projections are made by the consultants which we are working with. Like these are the Chinese consultant with the help of Chinese consultant and our experts in PIU. We have developed all those projections just using the data from those projections given by the World Bank. So we can safely say that we have gone all those the flip sides of those data which are going to be used for our projections, number one. And secondly, as far as the sensitivity analysis, yes, we have done all the sensitivity analysis for that, and we have gone different scenarios as well. We have made different spreadsheets with different combinations so that we can safely conclude that what kind of the inflow of the container traffic the calculations of our finding with project and without project and sensitivity analysis, and all these aspects have been taken into account. So if someone is interested, we can share all those details and how we can calculated all those predictions. But to be very honest, these are very and of their profitability and their viability. Even though we are not taking this as a major factor, but we have considered this aspect for the sake of our clarity and for the clarity of thought process, that even then it's a basic, like if we go for any public sector project in anywhere in the world, Mr. Jamali will second my thought that he has studied from Canada, I must say, you see that all the infrastructure projects in the modern world, they are heavily subsidized by the government. So why we are taking an exception to the ML-1 project? So we have put all these factors kept into mind and be bold to accept those challenges, that in infrastructure projects we have to take all those challenges. And basically it is the economic side which counterbalance the economic side, the financial side. We can see that the huge economic benefits as a result of ML-1 is the ease of doing business, the allied infrastructure development, the cost of developing roads will be far less, the ease of doing business and the cost of business is far less. So you will be transporting your containers, your merchandise, and the import bill of the diesel will be very low. So all these aspects coupled with the employment opportunities and the time saving would be far greater than the financial side of this project. So I hope I'm able to convince the audience.
Okay, we have 3 more questions. Sufyan Jabbar Saab.
My question is, I was previously, just to know myself, introduce myself. I'm Sufyan Jabbar and currently graduating student from China. And before that, I was working with PND Department, Government of Punjab. My question is regarding lost opportunity during first 5 years, like from 16 to 21. What is the economic opportunity cost of not having this one or not starting this ML-1 construction? तो हमने 5 सालों में कितना खो दिया, क्या इसका भी कोई एनालिसिस हुआ है? And second question is regarding has any study or you have done any analysis regarding how much the like current capacity, like capacity utilization towards the cargo sector of train operation? Like आपके पास कितनी cargo train की capacity है इस वक्त लाहौर to कराची ट्रैक में, और आप उसमें से कितनी bookings या कितना business catch कर पा रहे हैं? तो इसके ऊपर कोई financial modeling run करी गई है? These are my questions. Thank you.
Shahzain Subhani साहब.
I am Shahzain. I am basically contractor. बेसिकली मेरा सवाल ये है कि ये जो टेंडर अवार्ड होने हैं इसका तरीकाकार क्या होगा, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में मोस्टली इस तरह होता है कि LNG कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है तो वो बाद में एक स्कैंडल बन गया। इसी तरह ML-1 का जो टेंडर है इसका जो शफाफियत का वो क्या तरीका होगा? क्या आम आदमी एक पाकिस्तानी तक उस नॉलेज को पहुंचाया जाएगा? क्योंकि अभी समरियाल खारियाँ मोटरवे का टेंडर अवार्ड हुआ है जो कि FWO को हुआ है, तो ये एक शफाफी टेंडर थी, तमाम लोगों को पता चल गया कि तीन कंपनीज ने पार्टिसिपेट किया, NLC FWO जिसमें FWO को टेंडर अवार्ड हो गया। तो शफाफियत किस हद तक होगी, उसका क्या तरीकाकार है टेंडर का, ताकि आम आदमी को पता चलना चाहिए कि किस कंपनी ने क्या रेट कोट किया है। और दूसरा मेरा सवाल ये है कि हम काफ़ी अरसे से ML-1 सुन रहे हैं, लेकिन फिजिकली मतलब कि अब जाके उसका टेंडर हो रहा है, तो ये काफ़ी स्लो प्रोसेस है टेंडरिंग का या जो भी है, तो इससे मैं तो सेटिस्फाई नहीं हूँ। तो ये फास्ट प्रोसेसिंग होना चाहिए क्योंकि ये गेम चेंजर है पाकिस्तान के लिए। थैंक यू।
इफ्तिखार साहब. इफ्तिखार साहब, kindly unmute yourself.
मेरा सवाल बुनियादी ये है कि सारे अंदाजे जो लगाए गए और जो ये प्रेजेंटेशन इतनी अच्छी दी गई उसकी बुनियाद अंदाजों पे है। जब माल हवेलियां पहुंचेगा तो वो कितने टाइम में पहुंचेगा, और क्या जितना ये फ्रेट हमें दिखा रहे हैं, जितनी ट्रेनें ये चलती हुई दिखा रहे हैं हमें ट्रैक के ऊपर, क्या वहां पे हवेलियां में इनके पास इतनी बड़ी ड्राई पोर्ट की जगह है? तो वो कितनी जगह है, और टाइम फ्रेम क्या होगा जब चाइना के बॉर्डर से एक निकलेगा ट्रक और वो हवेलियां पहुंचेगा? उसको भी तो काउंट करना ना इस सारे प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर, के उसको काउंट नहीं करना। वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए जो सहूलत है सड़क की, उसकी सूरत हाल क्या है? क्या वो ML-1 का पार्ट नहीं होगी? क्योंकि ML-1 तो सारा का सारा जो कंसीव किया गया है इसी बुनियाद पे किया गया है कि माल आएगा और माल जाएगा। जब माल आके हवेलियां तक पहुंचने में इतने दिन लगा देगा, तो उसको आपने अपनी सारी जो असेसमेंट है उसमें कैसे शामिल किया, मैं इसको समझना चाहता हूँ।
Thank you, Iftkhar साहब. Over to Tariq साहब.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabah. Our whole freight projections are not on the ML-1 main trajectory, main line 1. Basically, the freight projections are based on the freight volume between the Karachi and Lahore. Basically, this is the main freight corridor, and the projections which have been shown are for the traffic between KPT, the port area, and the upcountry, like especially towards the you can say the Lahore and the beyond Lahore up to Peshawar. So as far as the dry port is concerned, तो ड्राई पोर्ट का मामला है वो बेसिकली ट्रांसशिपमेंट कंटेनर्स जो कि आप चाइना बॉर्डर से आप पाकिस्तान में ला रहे हैं, उनको राइट अप टू द पोर्ट एरिया जो चाइना ने थ्रू पाकिस्तानी पोर्ट उसको एक्सपोर्ट करना है या पाकिस्तान में लाना है, तो उसके लिए वो एज अ ट्रांसशिपमेंट हब यूज होगा। या कोई ऐसा कंटेनर है जो कि चाइना जाएगा और वो एज अ ट्रांसशिपमेंट, वो पहले वो हवेलियां तक जहाँ से आपके पोर्ट से जाएगा और फिर वहाँ से आगे से बाई रोड जाएगा, वो बेसिकली जो ड्राई पोर्ट होता है वो उसका एक ट्रांसशिपमेंट हब का रोल होगा वहाँ पे हवेलियां में, और वो एक स्मार्ट और एक छोटे लेवल का ड्राई पोर्ट होगा जो कि मेन उसमें एक फीडर पॉइंट के तौर पे काम करेगा, और उसका मेन वो नहीं होगा। और उसकी जो हमारी जो फ्रेट की जो हमारी प्रोजेक्शन है उसमें हमने किसी भी प्रोजेक्शन के अंदर उस जो ड्राई पोर्ट है उसकी कोई ट्रैफिक को हमने यूज नहीं किया। हमारे जितने भी जो assumptions हैं, हमारी जितनी भी जो प्रेडिक्शन है सारी फ्रेट की और पैसेंजर की इवन सारी, वो एक्सक्लूडिंग वो ड्राई पोर्ट है। ये ड्राई पोर्ट एक एडेड उसके अंदर एक बेनिफिट के तौर पे हमने इसको रखा है, क्योंकि ये हमारी जो फ्यूचर की कनेक्टिविटी है, क्योंकि ये जो सीपैक का ओवरऑल फ्रेमवर्क है इसने एक्सपैंड होना है और इसने फिर आगे हमारे जो रीजनल कनेक्टिविटी के अंदर फेज के अंदर दाखिल होना है। ML-1 इज जस्ट द स्टार्ट ऑफ दैट प्रोजेक्ट, जो एक बिगर लेवल के ऊपर सोचा जा रहा है। उसके अंदर ये सारा फिर ये है ना, जो फिर बेसिकली ये पेशावर से जलालाबाद तक हमारी जो कनेक्टिविटी होगी उसके अंदर फिर ये जो ड्राई पोर्ट्स होंगी वो अपना रोल प्ले करेंगी जी। जो पार्ट है शाहजैन साहब का टेंडर अवार्ड के वाले से, वो टीम लीडर साहब इसको रिस्पॉन्ड।
मेरा नाम बिशारत वहीद है, टीम लीडर हूँ। शाहजैन साहब asked the question regarding award tendering award process. That basically he asked two questions. First question was regarding tender award. As already explained, okay. तो शाहजैन साहब ऐसा है कि ये टेंडर चूंकि चाइनीज लोन के थ्रू हम ये प्रोजेक्ट करेंगे और ये एक नॉर्म्स हैं, जब भी कोई कंट्री लोन देता है तो उसमें कुछ कंडीशंस होती हैं। इसमें प्री कंडीशन ये है कि इसमें बिडिंग तो होगी। दिस इज अगेन अनलाइक अदर प्रोजेक्ट ऑफ मोटरवेज जिसमें बिडिंग शायद नहीं हुई थी। इसमें बिडिंग तो जरूर होगी, लेकिन ये अमंग चाइनीज फर्म्स होगी। उसमें जॉइंट वेंचर की परमिशन नहीं है पाकिस्तानी फर्म को, लेकिन इस प्रोजेक्ट में जो मटेरियल, जो चीज़ें इस्तेमाल होनी हैं वो अराउंड 60% to 70% पाकिस्तानी हैं, क्योंकि मेजर स्टील है, सीमेंट है, बजरी है। तो इसमें सब कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के तौर पे फर्में आएंगी और लोग अभी से इसकी तैयारी कर रहे हैं। वो चाइनीज के साथ अपनी मीटिंग्स भी कर रहे हैं और उन्होंने विजिट्स भी किए हैं और कुछ ने अपना उनके साथ अरेंजमेंट कर भी लिया है। तो 60% वर्क जो है वो लोकल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को अवार्ड होगा इनडायरेक्टली बाई चाइनीज कंपनीज। बिडिंग ओपन होगी अमंग चाइनीज फर्म और उस हिसाब से ये ट्रांसपेरेंट होगी, ये नॉमिनेशन नहीं होगी। वजह यह है कि रेलवे का जो लेइंग ऑफ ट्रैक है और सिग्नलिंग का सिस्टम है या और जो स्पेशलाइज काम है उसके कॉन्ट्रैक्टर एक्सपर्ट अवेलेबल नहीं है, जिसके लिए हमें चाइनीज की जो बड़ी फर्में हैं नंबर 1 और नंबर 2 उसकी सख्त जरूरत होगी, क्योंकि आम कोई बंदा रेलवे का ट्रैक लेइंग का एक्सपीरियंस नहीं रखता, पर्टिकुलरली उस ट्रैक पे काम करना जिस पे अराउंड 30 ट्रेन ईच वे चल रही हों। इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टास्क। तो इस लिहाज से हमारा जो गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नमेंट एग्रीमेंट है उसमें ये लिखा गया है कि हम ये बिडिंग करेंगे। दूसरा क्वेश्चन आपका था रिगार्डिंग स्लो प्रोसेस ऑफ टेंडरिंग। असल में स्लो टेंडरिंग का प्रोसेस स्लो नहीं है, इसकी अप्रूवल का प्रोसेस काफी स्लो रहा। हम 5 साल, 1 साल हमें फिजिबिलिटी स्टडी में लगा, उसके बाद हमने PC1 सबमिट कर दिया। ड्यू टू वेरियस रीजंस वो PC1 एक्सेप्ट नहीं हुआ और हमें कहा गया कि हम पहले इसका डिज़ाइन तैयार करें, जिसके लिए हमने फिर चाइनीज़ फर्म को, नेस्पा को और 1-2 फर्मों को साथ मिलाया और फिर हमने इसका डिज़ाइन तैयार करना शुरू किया। तो ये पूरी ML-1 का हमें प्रीलिमिनरी डिज़ाइन तैयार करना पड़ा, जिसमें हमें 2-2.5 साल लग गए। हमारा जो PC1 एक्चुअली प्रूव हुआ है वो पिछले साल हुआ है, तकरीबन उसको 1 साल गुजर चुका है। उसके बाद हमारी फाइनेंशियल नेगोशिएशन स्टार्ट हो चुकी हैं। अब हमारा डिज़ाइन तैयार है, टेंडर डॉक्यूमेंट तैयार है, सो मच सो कि हमने उसकी अखबार की एडवर्टीजमेंट भी तैयार की हुई है। अनफॉर्चुनेटली जो लास्ट मीटिंग पिछले महीने होनी थी JCC की, वो डिले हो गई ड्यू टू सम सिक्योरिटी रीजंस। जो ही वो मीटिंग नेक्स्ट होती है, होपफुली नेक्स्ट मंथ हमें जो ही परमिशन मिलेगी हम इसके पैकेज 1 के टेंडर अनाउंस कर देंगे। आई होप कि शाहजैन साहब को मैं सेटिस्फाई कर सकता।
The first question from Mr. Sufyan. Basically आपके जो सवाल का उसमें relatively major portion was addressed by Mr. Team Leader, because for the last 5 years we have undergone major activities like the feasibility studies, the preliminary design and the approval of PC1. Basically we have submitted 3 or 4 PC1s for that in different shapes. That once it was submitted for the phase 1, then it was phase 2, then it was package 1, then it was complete ML-1. So it took like more than 2 to 3 PC1s to be like given the proper shape and got the nod of the ECNIC and then final approval in the 5th of August last year. So basically, it was an ongoing process, and we never sit idle on that. As far as your question of the opportunity cost, frankly speaking, no such study has been done on that. What kind of an opportunity lost has been made by this wastage? But per se, it's not like a lost time, because during that we have firmed up our cost, we have firmed up our scope of services, we have gone through a detailed kind of an preliminary design, and all the hurdles which were like on the design codes, which were on the different combinations of the different articles which were had to be included in the complete design of the project, they were discussed, debated with the Chinese counterparts. Now everything is like firmed up, even the cost and the design. So we are in a takeoff stage now. Once we get the approval of the loan from the Chinese side, and then the advertisement is ready, tenders are ready, and the design has been completed and finalized. So we will be able to launch the process, and the groundbreaking will be in the offering there. So coming back to your point, what kind of the dollar value loss we have in that? Honestly speaking, that studies have not been done, and that could be carried out at some time once it's started. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tariq Saab, and thank you, Bisharat Ali Saab. One question that I have in my mind is right from the start of the webinar, which I would like you to answer. Let's go into the future, and we think that ML-1 has been built and it's there, and the freight trains are rolling and things are happening. Tell me, how do you think this ML-1 would sync with the Pakistan Railways that we have right now? But you mentioned it, that it's a slow-moving organization where there is resistance to change. Right now, we don't have ML-1. Once we have ML-1 and the freight trains are running and the passenger trains are running, how do you think that would sync with this contemporary PR huge structure that we have?
Basically, in my presentation, I have given this a very small brief of that, because the rest of the railways will be doing the way which is doing right now. And because basically the railway is a system, it's a network. So that's why we can't separate it entirely from the rest of the railways. Pakistan Railways will be working on that. And after that, we will be developing our ML2 and ML3 as well. So that will also be on at par with the ML-1 standards eventually in the coming years. But for the practical purposes, the ML-1 will be a complete independent entity, and it will be having its own independent governance structure with a separate financing and accounting model within the ML-1 structure. So as far as the rest of the railways is concerned, rest of the railways will be under the present regime, which is working right now. And ML-1 will be contributing towards the different functions of the rest of the railways. Like it will be in future, it might be cross-subsidizing the different losses which is being incurred on the loss-making routes. Like ML-1 will be definitely the more profitable route of Pakistan Railways, and the other routes which are on the branch lines, which have to be cross-subsidized, and the Pakistan Railway will be getting benefits from the development of ML-1 in a big way in that sense. Mr. Team Leader might be having a good view on that as well. Add on.
I think Tariq Sipra has already explained, but again, I just repeat what he want to say, that the organization controlling the ML-1 will be different from the existing regime of Pakistan Railway. I mean, the CEO of the railway, which is now in charge and of the ML-1 and controlling the ML-1, will be no more controlling the ML-1. There will be a separate entity and separate head of accounts. All the penny which we spend and which we earn will be separately accounted for. So rest of railway will become the rest of railway then, and there will be ML-1. And if in future we upgrade ML-2, ML-2 will be combined with the ML-1 organization. So instead of suddenly changing our whole governance structure, the railway has decided to gradually transform itself, and then gradually the track which we are going to upgrade in future will be automatically transforming and becoming a part of ML-1. So this aspect has been seriously taken care for, and one more thing which I like to explain, that ML-1 is not a stand-alone project. If you understand the track in Pakistan, when we start from the Karachi, there is the next station is the Hyderabad, where we have a junction, and there is a Hyderabad Badin section. When we come to next Kotri, there is a ML-2 originating. So there are so many junctions. So we cannot isolate technically ML-1 from rest of railway. For example, a train going from Lahore via Kotri, traveling on ML-2 ultimately has to travel on ML-1. So there should be some bridge between rest of railway and ML-1 authority or ML-1 organization, but definitely there will be a separate entity for ML-1. Thank you.
Last question, Sufyan Jabbar. Unmute yourself, please.
As I said earlier, मुझे थोड़ा सा मौका मिला चाइनीज रेलवे को समझने का, and then I have some time with NDRC China to listen about how they develop their railway during last 40 years or 30 years something. Just to give you, आप इसके financing model के अंदर जो मैंने आपके और उनके मॉडल में एक चीज देखी, दे आर लाइक उनकी मुख्तलिफ स्टेट्स या प्रोविंसेस ने एक 10 रुपए 20 रुपए का टैक्स लगा रखा है चाइना रेलवे डेवलपमेंट के लिए। इंस्टेड ऑफ कि वो आप डैम फंड के लिए अपनी टिकट पे कुछ पैसे डालें, आप अपनी रेलवे डेवलपमेंट के लिए पैसेंजर एंड कार्गो पे क्यों नहीं टैक्स लगा लेते? एंड लाइक दीज काइंड ऑफ मॉडल फॉर डिफरेंट स्टेट्स डिफरेंटली चार्ज करती हैं अपनी चाइना में, so that their connectivity, like उनको तिब्बत में ज़रूरत है, उनको ऊपर इनर मंगोलिया के अंदर उन्होंने एक लाइन बनाई है, so different states के अंदर उन्होंने differently थोड़ा सा 1-2-4 पैसे का टैक्स लगा रखा है रेलवे को की कंस्ट्रक्शन और उसके हवाले से। so I don't see such kind of innovation model here। यहाँ का जो फाइनेंसिंग या जहाँ का रेवेन्यू मॉडल है, इसमें मैं ऐसी कोई चीज़ नहीं देखी मैंने अभी। और सेकेंडली मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था रिगार्डिंग उनके यहाँ 3 या 4 किस्म के मॉडल हैं जो डिफरेंट स्पीड पे चलते हैं। हाई स्पीड रेलवे है, एक जनरल रेलवे, एंड देन दे कंसिडर इट अ लो स्पीड रेलवे शायद। सो एंड देयर इज आल्सो, और वो ये भी देखते हैं कि हमने रेलवे को एज ए कनेक्टिविटी यूज करना है, नॉर्थ साउथ को कनेक्ट करना है, इंस्टेड ऑफ के ये सिर्फ जिस तरह आप सब्सिडी की बात कर रहे थे। सो आर देयर एनी प्लानिंग के लिए हमने सिर्फ उसको रेलवे को बिजनेस मॉडल के साथ जोड़ना है, या हमने इसको कनेक्टिविटी के लिए भी कोई प्लानिंग या कोई ऐसी चीज चल रही है कि हमने इसे कनेक्टिविटी, फॉर एग्जांपल यू मे नीड दैट कि आप रत्तो डेरो से कोयटा की तरफ या आगे खुजदार एंड देन गवादर की तरफ, जस्ट द फॉर सेक ऑफ कनेक्टिविटी कि आप कम्युनिटी को कनेक्ट कर सकें इंस्टेड ऑफ बिजनेस। थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू सफियान, थैंक यू सो मच। ओवर टू तारिक साहब
जी। थैंक यू उस्मान। एक्चुअली बेसिकली आपके 2 सवाल हैं। पहला आपने जो कहा कि लाइक चाइना जो आपकी प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट्स हैं और डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नमेंट्स हैं, दे कंट्रीब्यूट टुवर्ड्स द रेलवे थ्रू डिफरेंट फंडिंग। अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारी जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नमेंट्स हैं वो खुद ही इतनी हैंडीकैप हैं पैसे के मामले में कि वो अपनी वाटर सप्लाई, सीवरेज, ड्रेनेज के मसाइल ही शायद हल नहीं कर पाते। उनके पास इतना पैसा नहीं है, फिर टैक्स उस पर लगाना इज़ वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट। रादर ये है कि हम जो अंडर पासिस एंड फ्लाईओवर बना रहे हैं, दीज आर अराउंड 20% ऑफ द टोटल कॉस्ट ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट। ह्यूज कॉस्ट, जो कि जनरली चाइना में जिम्मेदारी ही डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नमेंट की होती है या प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट की होती है। और इन द बिगिनिंग स्टेज वी ट्राई टू कन्विंस प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट at least they should contribute towards the conversion of level crossing, because जो रोड्स वहाँ चल रही हैं वो तो प्रोविंस की हैं और डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नमेंट की हैं, हमारा तो उनसे कोई वास्ता नहीं है, तो उसकी पैसे वो दे दें हमें, बट स्टिल वी कुड नॉट सक्सीड। और उन्होंने भी यही कहा कि जी पैसे तो गवर्नमेंट ने देने हैं, रेलवे ने खुद तो नहीं देने, आप पंजाब गवर्नमेंट से ले लें या फेडरल गवर्नमेंट से ले लें या लोन ले लें, हमारे पास तो है नहीं। सो इट इज़ वेरी डिफिकल्ट के फॉर अस के वी इम्पोज सम टैक्सेस। Maybe in future when we have a good ML-1 and good train operation, we can think about imposing some tax on freight transportation, जैसा कि टॉल होता था किसी ज़माने में रोड्स के ऊपर। बट एट दिस स्टेज हमने सिर्फ एक ही चीज़ डिस्कस की थी कि लेवल क्रॉसिंग के पैसे मिल जाएं, लेकिन वो भी हमें नहीं मिल सके। दूसरा आपने बात की रिगार्डिंग द कनेक्टिविटी. Yes, you are very much right. Today's basically the presentation was only standalone for the ML1. We have a holistic plan for the connectivity within Pakistan and outside Pakistan. Gwadar, to connect Gwadar with Taftan to to reach the Iran. We already have the connectivity Iran. So Gwadar to Quetta, we already done the feasibility study and it is a part of long-term CPEC. जिसकी और स्टडी मुकम्मल है और उसका PC1 भी एक इनिशियल हमने जमा करवा दिया था. लेकिन वो ML1 का वेट कर रहे हैं चाइनीज साइड के. अगर ML1 स्टार्ट होती है तो देन वो ग्वादर के लिए इसको सोचेंगे. और इस तरह चमन से हमारा जो कोयटा से चमन है और चमन को हम अफगानिस्तान से कनेक्ट करने के लिए चमन स्पिन बोलते एक ट्रैक है, उसका तो हमने काम भी अभी अवार्ड कर दिया है ताकि पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो सरहद है अप टू चमन बॉर्डर वो हम कंस्ट्रक्शन उसकी स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. उसका टेंडर भी शायद हो गया है. हवेलियां को खुंजराब को कनेक्ट करना हमारी अल्टीमेट है जो कि एक लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोजेक्ट है जिसकी प्री फिजिबिलिटी स्टडी हो चुकी है. तो कनेक्टिविटी की जहाँ तलक है कि हम इस पे पूरा फोर्स ही कर रहे हैं, बल्कि एक अलग रूट है हमारा जो कोयटा से कनेक्ट करेगा मियां वाली साइड को, उस पर भी काम हो रहा है. तो कनेक्टिविटी हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं एस्टेब्लिश करने की एज मच एज पॉसिबल. अगेन इशू फाइनेंसिस का होता है और फंडिंग का होता है. जो ही हमें फंडिंग कुछ अरेंज होगी तो हम प्रैक्टिकली मूव करेंगे. थैंक यू.
Thank you very much, Sava. If I can just quickly wrap this up, we've already gone 15 minutes time. Iftikhar Saab, sorry, we will take your question and you can just write that in. First, let me just thank Sava for pitching in for a while I was kind of listening, but also doing some other notes. Because this is the ninth out of our 9 webinars that we had planned, this concludes a sort of almost 1 year long exercise that we have undertaken with PIDE. Sipra Saab, aapka bhi, Team Leader Saab ka bhi, or again in absentia, but thanks for the Deputy Chairman Planning Commission, Jehanzeb, for stepping in and opening this ML1 seminar. I think to conclude on ML1, I can only say that, time will tell whether ML1 is the future of Pakistan's railway sector or is the cause of the demise of Pakistan's railway sector. I hope it is the former because personally, I would like to see a new railway company emerge in Pakistan. I'd like to see many railway companies, not just me, but all these researchers and all of us who have worked on the sector over some periods of our lives have actually great hope that Pakistan Railways is no longer just the company, this PSE, but rather the railway sector. And as Jehanzeb Saab said in the beginning of the webinar today, we really would like to have urban railway companies, provincial railway companies, mountain railway companies like in Germany, funiculars joining Pakistan's railway sector. But I think ML1 is a test for us all. It's not being implemented in the best of conditions. I know that approvals are being delayed, but we wish you all the best. And we do hope that at some point, ML1 is financed not just by the Chinese, but also through our public sector and through our stock exchange. These are ideas which we floated today. For all the people who have been listening to us, personal thanks from Sabah, myself, from my team, from Dr. Nadeem-ul-Haque, for being with us over this very long journey. What you will be seeing is in hopefully a month's time, the assembly of all these webinars in the form of a railway magazine that will be published by PIDE. And we are hoping, if everything works well and if Sabah and Dr. Fahim support us, we will be publishing a book on railways, which will be specific to Pakistan's railway sector, which we hope is going to lay the foundation of the first such book published by Pakistan beyond kind of books that have been written just by ex-general managers, which I think Sipra Saab knows very well, which were basically more biographies of these people rather than a serious study on the railway sector of Pakistan. And we are hoping that this book that PIDE publishes will sooner rather than later be taken up by the universities, and we start creating railway professionals who work in the sector and come to the sector in order to work not just for Pakistan Railways, but for the railway sector as a whole. And with that, again, Sipra Saab and everybody at your team, thank you very much. And thank you all for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.